So, welcome back, everyone. We're here on our fourth episode of the ABC Hockey Show. Glad to have you here. Uh, Being a snowy night here in New York, what better time to talk hockey than when we're locked indoors because of a blizzard that never happened? Now,
It's 75 in Miami, so it's tough here.
yeah, that must be awful. I hate you, by the way.
I love doing that. Yeah.
So, there's a lot of topics we could be talking about tonight. How Brad Marchand and Crosby are a point behind Connor McDavid for the lead in the points. How Marchand, who we all hate, has caught up to Crosby with 35 goals. We could talk about the standings, how Washington has really given away whatever lead they had. I think that they've really seen, they've really struggled in their past 10 games. They're 5-5, where Pittsburgh and Columbus have gone 7-2-1. We could talk about Artem Anisimov's injury that just happened in the first period. Alexander Radulov, and I clearly butchered his name, fell on his ankle right at the end of the first period. It looked bad. He didn't get off the ice on his own accord. He had to be carried off. Not sure how that's going to affect the first line of the Blackhawks. We could also talk about the Zach Aston Reese signing by the Penguins, but instead we have two what I feel are really important, or at least topics that are at the forefront of our heads, and that is the first one being a scenario where either in the first or in the third period, we can talk about the second later, but more specifically the first and the third, when a team is on a penalty kill and one of the killers breaks their stick, what is the proper protocol? Ben, do you want to get into how you view the situation and just kind of paint a better picture for what we're talking about?
Yeah, this is a topic you and I have talked about for years, right? I mean, it's such to me, it's an overlooked part of the sport and the strategy that you should employ. It's crazy to me. So here, let's talk about it. You're in your near change, right? So your bench defensively is closest to you now. You have a broken stick for a player. Let's argue that it's a defenseman who breaks his stick, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? What's the first thing that happens or should happen?
First thing that happens is the offense. One of the forwards gives him his stick.
Correct. So forward has to hand the stick to the defenseman. Now you have one forward minus a stick. Essentially, I call that a 5-on-4.5. You're on a semi-power play. You can't do anything. You're better off, in my mind, taking the 3 seconds or 5 seconds it takes, going from your blue line, 7 steps to the bench, grab anyone's stick, come back to the play. You're just as good not being there as you are putting your body in front of one of the point men's possible passes or shots. You get back in the play. You have no more shorthandedness. You can get right back on and defend the correct way. To stay there for what could be a minute, you see these guys dangling the puck in front of guys with no sticks, right? They hang out there by the blue line, look for a pass, look for passing lane. You can be on there for a minute and not have your stick. Get off for 10 seconds, come back on, see if the play goes.
So, I mean, from my perspective, I think that you're going to have to figure out one of two things. Number one, if I'm the forward who's on the far side, so not the closest to the bench, I guess we can kind of rotate around, but I'm not going to go, right? Because that's a bit of a farther run for me. But let's say I flip-flop with the other forwards, and now I'm closer to the bench. Wouldn't you rather have me put my body on some guy on the power play than for me just to completely leave it and make it a 5-on-3? Like 5-on-3, I'm sure you've seen. Literally, what happens is two defensemen stay back by the goalie.
5-on-4. It's a 5-on-4.
Yeah, but if I'm leaving to go get my stick, like
still a 5-on-4.
Not if I have to go leave the other team's offensive zone to go get a stick. So 3 guys have sticks, right? One guy's running to the bench.
No, 4 guys have sticks.
No, not if I'm on the PK.
Oh, are we talking? I wasn't talking about PK. We're talking about PK.
Oh yeah, specifically the PK.
Okay, so my fault. I still say you run off. So go ahead. I still say you run off and do that.
See, I think if it's going to be a 5-on-4, so a full strength and it happens, I think you, without a doubt, you go and run. You go run, get a stick. It's not a big deal. A 5-on-4 for 3 seconds is not a big deal. But I think when it becomes a 5-on-3, because I'm on the PK, I think that becomes a huge responsibility for the other 3 guys to have to be able to handle that. And it puts you in a distinct disadvantage because one of the 2 top guys within the power play are going to have an open shot, right? They're going to cycle it around that one of those guys is going to be open for a shot. And I don't know, I think it's super risky. I'd rather have some guy flailing around, even if it means he's diving at the puck with his hands to go swat it out of the zone. Because remember, in a hand pass, worst case scenario is it exits the zone. It's not a big deal because you're in your own defensive zone. I think you go with put a body on a guy, check someone, hit someone hard, take someone out of the play, and then when you clear, you can go get a stick. I mean, I feel like just to leave the action mid action is really super tough to do.
Here's what I understand that point, but here's my problem with it is that you're putting yourself at a disadvantage that could not end. It may not end. You may be there for the full 2 minutes, flailing your body, and you hard to play the puck, pushing it out of your hand. But every time it happens, you notice it's so hard to do. I'd even rather the guy run off the ice. Again, it's a top forward, right? So he's going to be closest to the bench, hopefully. You're going to the ice. Let someone else jump on and just take your spot. They're not going to call too many men in the ice for 2 seconds, even though it's probably illegal.
Well, then I'll ask you a question then. If it's so easy for you to switch so let's say you do what you just suggested, switch players, then how come when you see a really, really long shift or a team that is unable to clear, let's say the puck's on a power play in the zone for, I don't know, over a minute, how come you don't see guys changing on the fly, just literally exiting the zone and coming in and putting some fresh legs on?
That's different because in that situation, you're so proud of yourself for that question.
I am so proud.
No, in that situation, you have your full yes. You're tired, and usually what happens is ice the puck, right? But you can't even ice the puck, then you have no stick. You're so discombobulated at that point. Without a stick, these guys really they throw their bodies, and I'm doing it. You can't see me, but they throw their bodies in a little compacted position in front of the shot, hoping it hits them and hurts them. And I'd rather run off the ice. What does it help you to be scrambling about for a few minutes? If you're in a long defensive zone shift, yes, I know you're tired, you're scrambling. But the odds of you getting that puck, getting someone to cover it up or someone to ice it, is fairly high. The odds of you getting the puck with one guy without a stick, you're down a player with some guy really taking up a warm spot that is really hurting your defensive zone strategy. You can't get sticks in passing lanes.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. I also think they do the analysis that the assumption is that we're going to clear the puck sooner rather than later, right? So if we're going to be able to clear the puck in 2 seconds, then I'd rather be put on a body. If obviously we could look in hindsight, yeah, it's going to be 30 seconds where they're in the zone, then yeah, I probably should have gone to the bench 27 seconds ago and got another stick. I mean, I think the other piece that I could just kind of throw into this argument is, well, what do they actually do in practice? In reality, what do the teams actually do?
Right.
There's got to be a reason for it. But
it so rarely happens, right? You never see a guy very rarely see a guy rush off the ice.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mistaken strategy. I really, really do. I would rather have my guy, I know for a fact, for 10 seconds, I'm shorthanded. Let them fire one shot on net. You know who's firing it.
Right. Well, what would you do? What would you say? What's your opinion in the second period? What would you do?
The second period, it's a harder question because the change is long.
I don't want to say it doubles the amount of time it takes, but it's close, right? It could be.
It's definitely close.
Yeah.
You don't think it does? I think it
No,
might.
no. I'm saying it could be if we say it takes 3 seconds to go from top of the face-off circle to the bench and back, then it could very easily take 6 seconds to get to the edge of the bench in the second period, right?
I for sure think so.
So
I think that in that second period on a long change, I would say it's a case by case. I think there are times where it makes sense. Listen, if it's down low and the two guys battling for the puck that's caught up in the corner, you see them, kind of holding each other. Rush off, go, go, go. And if you don't, and if it's sitting up by the point, you know what? Stay there. Don't rush up. So you're giving the guy a free lane.
So you think in the first and the third it's automatic, in the second it's more of situational, depending on where the flow is of the power play.
Yeah, I think that if it's up by the defenseman by the point, you can't get out of his way. If it's down low and you're seeing it's not moving for maybe a second or two, turn, hightail it back, let someone else jump on for you and rush into the zone. Cover your spot.
It's interesting.
What do you think?
We should probably do a little research just to see, how long into a 5-on-3 do teams usually score, right? So if, let's say, 5-on-3, they usually score after, on average, 45 seconds, then it probably makes sense to go get a stick, right? Because they're probably not going to score right away. Whereas if they're usually, if the average is a lot lower than that, then maybe it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it's always an interesting discussion. Let's move on. There's one thing that I noticed, and it happened specifically last night. in the Penguins versus the Flames, and it happens in a lot of games that we're seeing, is teams kind of get stagnant at the end of the third period. If it's a tie game, with the last 2 minutes or so, typically teams are playing for that point. Well, what is a way, or how do you see us making that better? Because that as boring as the last 2 minutes of a basketball game is, where everyone calls timeout every 1 second, literally the last 2 minutes of a basketball game could take, I don't know, 45 minutes. The last 2 minutes of a hockey game isn't slow, but it just is both teams having like 4 defensemen back and one guy just chasing the puck and no one really looking to score. How do we change that?
What I think the thing, what's the team that we hate watching the most? The Devils, because they never play with. There's no such thing as an offensive part of their game since 1995.
Do you know what's so funny? I hate watching the Devils the most, but I hate the Flyers the most.
Yeah. Well, obviously you're a human with a heart and eyes. I mean, you have to hate the Flyers the most.
Yeah, I think even if I just had one eye.
They're the worst. They all should never be playing. Wayne Simmons.
Anyway, sorry. Keep going. So how do we make that? What's a way to fix this?
I think this goes to a greater conversation of the ranking, standings, and playoff positioning for the overall NHL. Right. I think you have to change it. I think you need. Right now, it's a 2-point system, right? So if you win a game, you get 2 points. If you win a game in overtime or shootout, you get the same 2 points. If you lose a game, you get none. If you lose it in overtime or lose a shootout, you get 1. It doesn't reward teams to try to go and get anything extra, right? Because if you're tied 1-1 in the last minute of a third, why try? Like, get that point. The point is very important. If you made it 3-2-1, where a regulation win, 3 points. Overtime shootout win, 2. Overtime shootout loss, 1. That gives you an incentive to then get that third point, get that extra goal, get that win in the shootout.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to sitting back and say, we'll get the 2 points, with the 1 point, and let's take our chances in the overtime and it'll be a whole different game. I don't like that. I think it makes sense to give them an incentive to go ahead and go.
So, just explain that 3-point system again. So, you'd get 3 to win in regulation.
Right. 2 if you win in a shootout or overtime.
2 if you win in a shootout or overtime, right?
And 1 if you lose. You still have to get a point for getting.
So basically, all it really does is changes the regulation points. It doesn't change anything else.
You add a point to regulation. It gives the same, but it makes that overtime point less important. Because right now you get 1. We talked about the other one of our first shows that how many points the Metropolitan Division teams have. We talked about it off air, but like it was 1.3 points every game.
Right.
Going to overtime is as good as winning.
Right. No, that's true. What about this tweak? And here's something that I actually been thinking about. So I do like the idea of the 3-2-1, but again, it happened last night in OT. The last 2 minutes, it happened to be 30 seconds because there was a power play starting at the 2:30 mark. But typically, the last minute or so of overtime, minute and a half, it gets slow because the teams are like, I don't want to give up a bad goal because some guy missed his assignment or because some guy had a breakaway. I don't want to lose on that. I'd rather go to the shootout. What if we went this? So the winning team, if you win in regulation, you get 3 points. Mm-hmm. If you win in overtime, you get 1 point, and the losing team, if you win in overtime, you get 2 points, and the losing team gets 1 point. So again, a total of 3 points. Lastly, if you go to a shootout, the winning team gets 1 point, the losing team gets nothing.
The winning team gets 1 point.
And
what does the winning team in the shootout get? 2 overall points?
No, right now?
No, in your system.
In my system, the winner gets 1 point. Basically, I would expand overtime to, let's say, 8 or 10 minutes instead of 5. And then you would get 2 for winning in overtime, 1 for losing in overtime. And then, so there's already a flaw in my system, and I realize it. It's because it's better. You get more points if you lose in overtime than if you lose in a shootout. So teams will be incentivized to just pull their goalie at some point. No, I don't think they will because they don't want the other team to get 2 points.
Right. Well, yeah, but you're not incentivizing them to win in regulation that way.
Well, you are because you can get 3 if you win in regulation. So 3 for regulation win, 2 for overtime win, 1 for overtime loss. And then one for shootout win, nothing for shootout loss.
So if you take the game to overtime,
You basically
go past
aren't
overtime,
locking in. That 1 point that has locked in right now as soon as regulation ends is not locked in.
right?
It is.
You basically lose a point for losing in the shootout.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, for all of us, and I know that people find the shootout exciting, but for me, my biggest issue with the shootout is that it's not hockey, right? Like in the playoffs, we don't have shootouts. In real hockey, that's not how hockey's played one-on-one with the goalie. It's the same issue with soccer, like going to penalty kicks. Like that's not how soccer's played. Why should you determine a game based off of 3 guys who can shoot the puck? You've got Oshie going in, who's like 100% in shootouts. So your team wins. Good. Like that doesn't make sense. That's not how hockey's played. Like why would you? You've just played theoretically 3 periods plus an overtime, depending on how long I want it to be. But you've just played 3 periods and overtime. Why should the game be decided on one guy who beat a goalie? I don't know. I just feel like, again, you can't have games going to like 6 overtimes, not in the playoffs, because the regular season already is long enough as it is. Ton of wear and tear. You've got back-to-back games. Like players just can't be playing until 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning because overtime kept going. So I understand that the shootout is a fix, but I think that you shouldn't get as many points in a shootout win as you do in a regular real hockey scenario win.
I don't disagree with you on most of that. I really don't. Obviously, you can't. We can. None of us will say that hockey is even overtime hockey is not 3-on-3 right now is not real hockey.
No, but it's fun as hell.
It's fun as hell, but it's pond hockey, right?
Right.
Yes, it's fun, but I would never trade a 3-on-3 overtime in the playoffs for the marathon games that you can get.
No, I agree with you. But the stakes are so much higher in those games in the playoffs versus the regular season.
And you can't do that every game, right? You can't ever play a five period game in the regular season and play the next night.
No, right, exactly. Like in playoffs, you always have a day. Usually, you have a rest. Sometimes you have a back, but like for the most part, you've got that rest in between. So it's not like it's not gonna like in the regular season it could kill you. I don't know. I don't think you could do a 4 overtime or like they had in it was Russia, the 8 overtime, whatever. Like you can't have that happening in a regular season. But I just think you want to be able to wait. I like the 3-point win in regulation. I think that's great. I think that would be a huge addition. It would really have teams scrapping at the end of the 3rd period to get those points. And then conversely, it would also, again, if you go to the 2 and then the 1 for the shootout, you'd have teams still trying to win in OT because they don't want to go home without anything. So
we both agree on most of that. I think it's a question of the extra overtime points.
Got it.
And we'll continue to discuss.
Yeah, we'd love to hear what you guys have to say. If you'd like to weigh in on this, please feel free to leave a comment either under the YouTube, on Facebook, or you can shoot us an email at abchockeyshow@gmail.com. Again, abchockeyshow@gmail.com. We appreciate everyone listening to us, continuing to listen to us. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Please like us on Facebook. And again, if you'd like to reach out, have any comments, want to hear our take on any topics, please let us know. Please reach out. Have a great night, guys.
Good night.